Chris Richey and Scott McPherson, our next speakers, realized that they had experiences surrounding HIV and stigma. Chris leveraged his skills from political and nonprofit fundraising. Scott brought his graphic design skills from his role as creative director of The Advocate. Jointly, they founded the Stigma Project. Joining us from Los Angeles, my hometown, please welcome Chris Richey.
On October 13th, 2010, my best friend invited me out for drinks to celebrate my birthday. To give you some perspective into what was going on in my life at the time, just 5 months prior, I had moved to Los Angeles from a small town in East Texas to pursue my career in political and nonprofit fundraising. And just 1 month prior, my mom, my rock, had been diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. Needless to say, I needed a drink. That night, my friend and I went out, and as we were walking in West Hollywood along Santa Monica Boulevard, we passed the Millions of Milkshakes, and I spotted a mobile testing unit. And I thought to myself, it's been about 5 months since my last HIV test, so maybe I should go in and get tested. So I asked my friend if he would mind if I'd go in and get it over with, and he said, of course not. So there I left him on the sidewalk with a milkshake in hand and proceeded to go in to get tested. Now, usually I'd be a bit more nervous about getting an HIV test. The 2 straight vodkas I had before this had zero to do with the calming of my nerves. That being said, as a sexually active gay man, I was used to routine HIV tests. Similarly, I was used to the sitting and the waiting and the worrying about what the test results might be. But they were always negative. And I could breathe my sigh of relief and go on about my life. This time, the results came back positive. Now, there are about 1 million things that were going through my mind that night, and about 1 million other different things that I was feeling. But no feeling really more than the feeling of shame. I felt an intense amount of shame. That shame only intensified as I learned what it was like to live with HIV. And what I mean by that is experience life as an HIV-positive man. I learned what it was like to experience rejection. That didn't feel good. I learned what it was like to experience discrimination. That didn't feel good. But the thing that ate away at me more than anything else was the fact that my mom is fighting a battle with cancer halfway across the country, something she couldn't prevent. And here I am fighting something that was entirely preventable. In the year following my diagnosis, I numbed my pain through substance abuse. And then one night, no longer recognizing the guy I saw looking back at me in the mirror, I tried to kill myself. Clearly, I failed. I'm lucky because I had a great group of friends, and they were there the following morning in support, but mostly with a message, and that message was, wake up. There's almost nothing like coming close to death to realize the real value of life. And I say almost nothing because 2 days later, my mom called with the news that she was cancer-free. In a year full of traumatic events, I had never felt more alive. That was when I decided I was going to start living again. In the months following, I began to talk more openly about being HIV positive. And then that's when I decided I wanted to do something to confront the stigma that I felt. Nobody should feel the way I did, and nobody should feel less than human. Nobody should feel that alone. The more I talked about HIV to my friends and my family and my coworkers, the more they learned what it was like to live with HIV today. In the year 2013, one conversation at a time, people were learning. One conversation at a time. And that's when I had my big eureka moment. So I knew what I wanted to do to confront stigma, but I knew I needed someone else there to help me. And so I picked up the phone and I called the one person who, when I disclosed to him that I was HIV positive, he said, "Well, are you okay? Are you on treatment?" And I said, "Well, I'm in care, I'm on meds, and I'm undetectable." And he responded with, "Okay, well, that's great, Chris. What are we having for dinner?" It was the first time in a long time, especially in disclosing my HIV status, that I felt incredibly normal. The person that I'm talking about is here with us today, and he is my co-founder and my friend and my right arm, Scott McPherson.
So Chris called me in February of 2012. He knew that I was the creative director of The Advocate and HIV Plus magazines, and he knew I was a graphic designer. So he said, "Scott, I want to start an organization. I want to call it the Stigma Project. I wanted to ultimately reduce stigma, get more people to know their status, and if needed, onto treatment. I just don't know how I'm going to do that yet. Can you help me design the logo?" Now, I'd always been shocked when I'd witnessed stigma indirectly. I feel like I know most of what there is to know about HIV and what it feels like to be HIV positive just through the articles that I would design in the magazines. So I said, sure. And before I could even end the call, Chris was banging down my door. So Chris came over, we sat at my computer, we started with the logo. He knew that he wanted the T in the word stigma to be a plus sign for positive. We'd use simple, modern, marketing-driven fonts for the type. But when I looked at the result, I felt left out. After all, isn't most of the stigma associated with HIV coming from those who are negative? So when I put a minus sign under the plus sign, our eyes lit up. That's it. That was our logo. Of course, we didn't know it then, but it would become so much more than just our logo. It was how HIV neutral was born. Now, HIV neutral is not a status. It's not an emotion. HIV neutral is simply the idea of bringing positive and negative people together to confront stigma head on. That night, we also created our first 4 ads. And if you want, I could share those with you today. Our first ad we created was called See No Status. And it's simply about withholding judgment solely based on someone's status. Funny enough, that night we selected a cool vintage picture of a blindfolded man. But does anybody recognize him? Apparently it was some guy named Rock Hudson. We didn't know it then, and we'd find out several months later, but for those who don't know, he was this Hollywood heartthrob, and he was one of the first to come out about his status, and he ultimately died of AIDS complications, but it caused an uproar, and people kind of finally woke up, and so it ended up being kind of fitting. The next graphic originally featured two men holding hands with the words HIV neutral over the image. Now, I think the word neutral works so well in this case because people see it different ways. Some may see it as representing serodiscordancy or a magnetic relationship. But we wanted to change that. So we changed it to this one of two men who could be seen as friends or lovers. During our photo research, we came across this photo. It was a small hand-painted sign on a dirt road in India. It read, "No AIDS, no AIDS." Perfect message, right? We knew it needed to be seen by more people, so we created our version of it. No HIV equals no HIV. The last graphic, and my personal favorite, is our Dorothy graphic. Now, I've been a friend of Dorothy's ever since I was in diapers. Meaning The Wizard of Oz is the source of all my creativity. I try to reference it any chance that I get. It's my favorite film. But with this ad, we wanted to talk about how far we've come since HIV and AIDS were first discovered. In 1984, no one knew what it was. People were scared. But we're not in Kansas anymore. This is 2013. And we know what HIV is. And we have the tools and the knowledge to diagnose it, to get people into care, and to keep them there. The next morning, we started sharing these on a Facebook page. The response was immediate. In a few days, we had a couple hundred likes, and momentum has really only grown since then. Needless to say, Chris and I were now a team. It's been 18 months since Chris called me up, and we have released exactly 100 graphics on that Facebook page. We have almost 9,000 likes, and if I can get everyone in this room to like our page, we would soar past 10,000 right here at USCA. But the biggest number, and to us the most important number, is that on that Facebook page, we have reached nearly 2 million people. So we've seen firsthand how the right combination of words and images, they can move people to action. And I know, and I believe now, more than ever, that we need to use the power of design to not only raise awareness, but to combat stigma.
Scott and I have our fair share of skeptics and critics. We're not immune to it. Some people say things to us like, guys, what you're doing is pretty cool, but how are you going to combat something as complex and complicated as HIV and stigma through Facebook? Well, there is a case to be made around social media providing transformational change around social issues. We're only just seeing the beginning that the power that social media harnesses, but perhaps it's the power to mobilize millions of supporters to help win a political election and change the way politics is done forever. We saw that with President Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. Or the power to connect a country to the rest of the world and start up a revolution. We saw that with the Arab Spring and Egypt. Or perhaps it's the power to beam up donations half a world away to the victims of a natural disaster like we saw in Fukushima in Japan. All of these things are significant pieces and examples of social change that happened through social media, through PCs, through laptops, through mobile phones, all around the world. And these are the tools that we must use to bridge the gap between the reality of HIV today and what the general public actually knows. You see, people are getting information that overwhelms them, or they're not getting the information, or worse yet, they're becoming immune to the information. Everyone in this room knows that stigma is one of the biggest barriers to ending the epidemic. We all know this, but this is why you educate, this is why you innovate, and this is why Scott and I, two friends, one positive, one negative, with less than $1,000 and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, decided to make an impact through marketing and new media. Because that's where we can keep this conversation going. Our hope is that our story will inspire you to bust through denial and complacency and AIDS fatigue with simple, clear messaging. Our hope is that our story will inspire you to keep pushing for those creative ways that get people to sit up and take notice and take action. Science and technology and the real-time sharing of information. You pair that with empowering, targeted messages. That's enough to spur a revolutionary response that will put us ever closer to ending the epidemic. When we work together, when we challenge ourselves to think differently, when we leverage this amazing new power that social media has, guys, we change the world. Together, we can end the epidemic. And we can do that one Facebook status update, one tweet on Twitter, but most importantly, guys, we can do it one conversation at a time. Thank you.